Hey everybody, welcome to Marketing Your Foster Pet. Thank you so much for joining us today. We can see our attendee count starting, which means people are coming out of that waiting room and into our meeting. So thank you so much for joining us. We're going to do a quick sound check, if you wouldn't mind. All of you who are signed in via Zoom, you should have the opportunity to raise your hand. It's a function in Zoom. If you can hear us and see us, could you raise your hand just so we can see those hands go up and know we're doing something right? Awesome. Okay, I see a bunch of hands going up, which means I think y'all can hear us. That's good news. Good news on our end. Fantastic. Great. I'm going to lower all hands there. Awesome. And our attendee count is still climbing, so we're going to give everybody just a minute to get into our meeting. Team, while we wait, if you have burning questions about marketing your foster pet that you want to ask our panelists, hover over that Q&A bottom at the bottom of your screen. You can submit your questions. At the end of the call, we will be taking some of those live, so make sure you submit those throughout the call. We'll go over those instructions again once everybody finishes joining us. And we also have a chat box too, so if you have any questions for just the group at large or anything you want to comment on, feel free to utilize that chat box throughout the call as well. All right, let's see here. All right, our attendee count is slowing down. I think that means almost everybody is here, so we will go ahead and get started. Hello, my name is Rachel Webb. I am one of the team members at the Petco Foundation. Thank you all so much for joining us for this Marketing Your Foster Pet series. We have done a few of these webinars as a way to kind of support all of you who have stepped up to adopt new pets or foster pets during this COVID-19 crisis. So before we get started, I just want to say a huge thank you on behalf of the Petco Foundation to all of you who have fostered before this, who are fostering during this, and who will continue to foster after this. We know that fostering truly does have the power to save lives. And we're really grateful that you all have stepped up and really taken action to save lives in your community. We cannot say thank you enough. So thank you. And we do hope that you find this webinar helpful for you all throughout your foster journey today. A couple of housekeeping things before we get started. I did tell some of you, but I know that some people have joined us in. I want to call out our Q&A box at the bottom of the screen. So all of you who are logged in via Zoom, if you hover over the bottom of your screen, you'll see a couple of different functions. One of those is Q&A. You can submit your questions for your panelists in that box. At the end of the call, we will take a few of you off of mute and or read your questions to the panelists, and we'll try to get through as many of those questions as we possibly can. So keep those coming throughout the call. There's also a chat box, so if you have anything to add or anything that you want to just throw out to the group, please feel free and do that in the chat box as well. We'll be monitoring that throughout the call. We will also be updating that chat box with important resources, links, and anything else that our panelists mentioned. So I think that is the end of my housekeeping. We thank you all so much for joining us. And with that, I will turn it over to our esteemed panel of fantastic women guests who have joined us today from 3 amazing organizations who do great work to save animal lives. So Caitlin, Corey, Anna, thank you for joining us, and I will let you take it away.
All righty, thank you so much. I'm gonna go ahead and get my screen going here. Hopefully everybody can see it.
It looks great.
All right, perfect. Thank you so much, Rachel and everyone at Petco Foundation for having us today. We are so excited to be here. So my name is Tori Fugate. I'm with Casey Pet Project. And then we also have Caitlin Quinn with HeartSpeak and Anna Lai from Muddy Paws Rescue out of New York City. And we're each going to go through and kind of introduce all of our organizations to you and talk about the work that we're doing in our respective organizations. And also we hope that today that you are able to take away a lot of helpful information that you can get your pets adopted and hopefully find them forever homes. And so thank you so much for having us. I'm with Casey Pet Project. We're in Kansas City, Missouri. And we care for the around 10,000 pets a year at Casey Pet Project. And we are a little bit different that we're a nonprofit that operates the Kansas City, Missouri Municipal Shelter. So we have the city contract to take in all the animals from Kansas City, Missouri, and that's around 10,000 pets a year. We have 13 locations to adopt in the metro area, including 10 Petco stores that we're in. And so we have cats everywhere all over the city in, normal circumstances. We recently opened our new shelter that's pictured there, which is the Kansas City Campus for Animal Care, and we opened that in January of this year. Before that, we were working out of a nearly 50-year-old former construction shed for many, many years, and so this has been a fantastic upgrade for our city to be able to have this beautiful shelter. And then right now, every single one of our available pets at KC Pet Project is currently living in a foster home. And so as pets become available, they're made available in foster, and then we're doing a lot of virtual adoptions and things like that at our organization right now. Anna, I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, thanks. So hi everyone, my name is Anna, and I am the marketing director at Muddy Paws Rescue based in New York City. We're just 4 years young, and we're a foster-based dog rescue who works with open intake shelters locally and also down south to pull in dogs. We place generally 1,000 dogs every year, and we've saved 3,500 lives so far, thanks to our network of over 1,000 fosters that we work with. And we typically adopt out dogs at our weekend adoption events, pop-ups in front of Petco and PetSmart. But however, with the current situation, we've had to pivot a little and sort of do virtual adoption meetings instead over Zoom, just like this. So we really have been depending on our fosters to go a little extra and do a little more to help place our dogs in forever homes at the moment.
And I am Caitlin Quinn. I'm the Director of Operations for an organization called HeartSpeak, which is a nationally based organization that's kind of home based in New York State, so about an hour north of where Anna is. And we were founded in 2010, originally as a community of artists that grew to be around 600 large that were all volunteering their time pro bono in shelters and rescues. And that then led us to develop a couple of other programs that are really focused exclusively on marketing and photography for shelters and rescues. So providing training on photography, providing training on marketing, and then providing as many free tools and resources as we can just to make the efforts of marketing a little bit easier, a little bit more turnkey for all of our shelter and rescue partners and their fosters as well.
Great, thank you both. So first of all, we want to kind of just talk about basic communication with your program manager. So for each organization that you foster for, it's going to be a little bit different. You may have a foster manager, you may have a marketing person, it may be the CEO of your organization, or it could be a volunteer that you're working with. So now you have a pet in your care. So what is next? You know, what's the next step? So whenever you take a pet into your care and to foster, it's really great to understand the organization's expectations of you as the foster. So when you're going into it, understand your role. Is it to simply just get a pet adopted? Is it to provide space at the shelter or within a group like Anna's group, that's a foster-based rescue group? Is it a hospice foster or medical behavior? So understanding your role and what is expected of you as the foster is a really important thing to know up front, and getting that information from that person that is at the organization is a really vital part of fostering. Remember that it's ultimately about getting the pet adopted and helping that animal find hopefully forever home. And right now it's an interesting time to be in because adopting pets is the hot thing to do. The more pets that get adopted, the more our organizations can help in our community and even outside of the community. And so we really hope, fostering has been really the cool thing to do right now. And we hope that this trend continues even after this is all over. Know who to contact. So whenever you sign up to foster, know that person that you need to be able to get in touch with if you have questions, concerns, anything like that. For adoption related questions, know who to reach out to. If you have somebody that wants to adopt your pet, know that you know who you need to contact within the organization to get that pet adopted and get the paperwork finalized. Also, any medical or behavior support. So here we have our veterinary team responding to any medical questions, and then our training team is on the hook for any behavior related support. So if you're having any concerns in the home, make sure that you know who to contact. And typically in most groups, there is somebody that they would much rather you contact instead of your own vet. And so know the best line of communication for that. And whenever you are fostering a pet and you collect all this great information about them, about their bio, anything like that, it's really great to know how to get that marketing content to the right person. So is it through email? Some organizations use Google Docs, and you fill out a form with the information. Even Facebook groups, we have an internal Facebook group here that people can post bios and photos and things like that. Facebook message, text, I mean, there's a million ways to communicate these days. So it's really great to know how to communicate with those organizations that you're fostering for. And it's also a really helpful thing to use hashtags and tag the organization on social media so that we can see anytime that you're posting content. It's, for us, it's hashtag KC Pet Project. You can use others to get the word out about your pet. We're going to talk about social media stuff here in a little bit, but it's really nice for us to be able to see the pet in the home. And so it's great to tag those organizations that you're fostering for so that we can see that content. And then really, I mean, this is all about you and you helping us save lives. So we couldn't do this without you. And on behalf of the organization that you're fostering for, we thank you. I think in the past, there may have been this perception that pets in foster, that there's something maybe wrong with them because they're in a foster home and they're not available at the shelter. And this has really flipped everything on its head. And now fostering is basically the shelter outside of the shelter. And again, we just really hope that this trend continues and that, pets in foster, we know so much more about usually because they've lived in a home, and we're able to really make solid matches with potential adopters because you're helping us by fostering. So any other things, Caitlin or Anna, about that?
No, just a huge thank you.
All right.
So we're going to talk a little bit about photos, mostly because it's always been true that photos are kind of the way to capture attention and that way to open the door. But especially now with the fact that, most people can't go into a shelter or can't go to an event where they normally would have met your foster dog, like the events that Anna's organization typically has. Those online photos have become even more important than they were in the past. So we'll go over a couple of tips on how to specifically improve cell phone photos. Do you have a next slide? That's okay. So there are a lot of things we can talk about when it comes to photography, but we're going to focus specifically on cell phone photos because it's a technology that's available to all of us, whether you have the latest and greatest phone or you're a couple years back with your iPhone or your Galaxy or anything like that. Cell phones have come so far that we can take amazing photos on them, even if they are a little bit older. But the way that we can improve those photos without having to get the latest and greatest technology is really a couple of very simple tips. So the first one is simply getting on the level of the animal. And this example photo that's here kind of shows that a little bit better. And a really important reason for that is that sometimes if we take photos from above, it's really hard to tell the size of the animal. And that's such an important factor for a lot of people in bringing in a new pet into their home, especially when it comes to dogs, knowing the size and kind of general, weight of that animal can sometimes be really important to the decision that's going into adopting that pet. The other tip that we have here is fill the frame. And what we mean by that, and we'll have a couple examples in coming slides, is really just trying to make sure that in this example, the dog is really the focus of the photo. So rather than pulling that back and seeing more of my living room, we really want to make it about the dog and that connection with the dog. The other really important tip is how we use light in our photos. And there's a common misconception that when it's a beautiful sunny day outside, that we want to go out and take our photos at that moment. And the truth is you actually want a nice cloudy day, because it makes the light much softer, and or be in the shade, one of those two options. I know some of us don't always get cloudy days depending on where you're living. But you actually want to be out of the direct sunlight, and that includes sunlight that's streaming in through the window. So when you see the sunlight behind me, that's kind of diffused because there's not a ray of sunshine coming in behind me. But in any case, you want to avoid that direct sunlight, and it's for the simple reason that pets end up squinting and kind of looking different in the sunlight the same way that we do. So the same way that when someone takes your photo outside, maybe at the beach, and there's no shade in sight, and you kind of end up looking not really like yourself, those aren't always the most flattering photos. Same thing for pets. We want to kind of keep them in a shady spot so that we can see more of the detail, see more of the color of them. And when we're using natural light, especially in the home environment, the best thing to remember is just not to place the window behind the pet. You actually want the window to be behind you as the photographer, so that the light is coming in over your shoulders and shining really kind of nicely and flatteringly on the animal. So if you have that possibility in your home, try to use the window that way. And if you have to use lamplight and things like that, same thing applies. You want that coming in over your shoulders as the photographer, and not necessarily shining on the animal interrogation style. So keeping that light a little bit more even and flattering. A couple more quick tips. The first is just pay attention to what's in the background. If your house looks like mine, especially now that we're here all the time, there are toys all over the floor. There's a lot going on. And this is another good reason to just kind of fill that frame and make the animal the focus. If you have a lot of stuff going on in the background of the photo, see if there's a possibility for you to simply angle yourself differently to get a different perspective, a different shot of that animal. The other tip is to shoot for eye contact. And this is by no means like a hard and fast rule. There are some beautiful photos we can get that are connective, and maybe it's a photo of a family member with that pet or your children with that pet that are just as magical without eye contact. But if it's a simple photo where the animal is alone in the picture, like this example, trying to get eye contact is really important, because that's kind of how people connect, especially if they're only able to look at these images initially online. We want them to have that kind of lightning bolt moment where they decide that they're interested in this animal. And eye contact is going to help with that in a lot of cases. Quick tips for eye contact: if you're working with a dog, a quick squeak of a toy kind of right above your cell phone so that you're getting them to look right at that lens, or any kind of kissy noises with your mouth. If you have a cat foster, using a very simple wand toy, something that doesn't have too many extra things that will get caught in front of the camera, but something that you can kind of reach out to them and pull back towards the camera to get that eye contact. Those kinds of things can help in a quick moment get that direct eye contact. Just make sure you're ready to snap that photo when you're going for those noises and things like that. And the final kind of tip we're going to provide here is to highlight the pet qualities and connection. So it doesn't have to be anything fancy. And that's a theme that will come up as we talk about social media and bios, is that sometimes the most simple acts of marketing, just showing how that animal is in your home, showing your relationship with them, is going to be the most magical thing. Did I miss anything, guys? Anything else to add?
No, I think we're good.
Good. Okay. So I love these examples, and chime in if you guys have anything else to add. But I think this is a perfect example of how simply clearing the frame and making sure that the animal is the focus of the photo can really make a huge difference in how we see that pet. So imagine scrolling through social media or Pet Finder or any of the Adopt a Pet, the ways that we find pets. Which one of these is going to grab your attention? Probably the one where the dog looks a little bit more relaxed. We can see more of him. He's in the grass. There's a lot there for us to kind of grab onto, whereas the other photo, I think, is more distracting. It's a little bit harder to tell the size and the full shape of that dog. Anything else to add, guys?
Yeah, no, I think those are both great examples. And of course they both have people in them, but the photo on the right, you know, it's just like, oh, someone's just, you know, hanging out by them. It's not like it's not like the one on the left where it almost feels like a forced interaction, like, oh, we're trying to get a photo, really. It's not going
Yes.
well.
Exactly. And then I love both of these examples. So this is really just showing off again, the simplicity of this. This doesn't have to be anything crazy. You don't have to set up a backdrop in your home. You don't have to do anything overly contrived either. These are just kind of moments where the cat is actually still and we can take a second. And I think the example on the left-hand side of the screen is perfect in that, you know, there's a painting in the background and there's the rest of the cat tree, but it's really easy to focus directly on that cat because of the eye contact, because of the way that they framed that shot. You know, his little ears aren't cropped out of the photo or anything like that. And nothing about that is distracting. And same thing with the other photo. It's just, we can tell that the cat is in a home, which I think is a lovely thing for people to be able to see. I think it helps them imagine these foster pets living in their very own homes. But there's nothing distracting us away from really making this about the pet.
And cats, I think, have a little bit of a disadvantage to dogs because dogs can have this lovely, like, smiley face, and then cats always look a little bit serious. But
yeah.
One thing I love about the photo on the right, when we posted, people were like, I love his little fancy foot, like his little turned out foot. And it was a detail that I didn't really even notice, but there were so many people that like said that they just loved his little turned out foot. So
right, anytime there's little
can connect with somebody.
Yeah, anytime there's little crossed paws or anything like that, it's definitely very endearing. And just some final examples here. I love this photo of this dog. And this is also a great example of just kind of using your cell phone's superpowers. So many of our cell phones now have, you know, portrait mode, or that you even may have some manual function on your phone where you can adjust things like exposure and your shutter speed and things like that. And this is a perfect example of using that kind of effect of portrait mode where everything behind that dog is completely blurred out. And because it's blurry and in this beautiful kind of way, but the dog's face is properly kind of captured and it's not blur from movement, it's just blur from the background of a portrait image. He's the full focus, and I just want to boop his little nose because he's so cute.
And also, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I wanted to say, actually, this is Eleanor, and she is one of the older girls that Muddy Paws Rescue had recently adopted out. The foster actually took almost 50 photos before we landed on this one, so it's totally okay to fill your whole photo roll with all these photos of this beautiful dog. It does take, you know, a lot of shots to get the perfect one where she's smiling, looking into the camera. There are many shots of her just sort of shaking her head around. But it's really patience, and, you know, with the right squeak, the right noise, she'll look into it to the camera and you'll have the shot.
I love that. And that's such good advice that, you know, don't be afraid, especially since a lot of us have the time right now, don't be afraid to try a couple different things and a couple different shots. And then we have Alfie, who's the cat in these other photos. And I just wanted to show you here a couple of things. One is the bottom photo, you know, we have cropped his ears a little bit and it's very tight on him, but I think that that's okay for this purpose. And it's also a good argument for providing a couple different photos to the adoption agency that you're working with, so that, you know, they may use one of these photos on social media, they may use another one on an adoption listing. And there's a lot of different ways for us as agencies to end up using these images. So don't be afraid to provide more than one shot. And the only other thing I wanted to point out here is the light coming in from the side of him on the top photo. That's how we would want to use that window. So rather than turning our body so that the window is behind him, it's okay if the window is kind of alongside of him if you can't contrive, you know, the window being behind you as the photographer. So there's lots of ways to work with this. Just try to shoot for no backlighting so that you don't end up with a dog or cat that looks like they're in the witness protection program where they're all dark and everything else is light. And then to talk a little bit about video, there's so much value to using video as a tool. So once you have a couple of those great photos to share, and especially in cases where maybe you have been fostering a long-termer or an animal who has something that maybe has been standing in their way of adoption. Maybe they have a medical issue, or they're a little bit older, or somehow are just getting overlooked. Video can really be the key that unlocks some of that attention for them. Just remember, when you're taking video, try to really stabilize your phone. So keep your elbows really tight to your body, and try not to, even if you have to follow that animal in the video, try not to make it like too much of a roller coaster, just because that tends to be the kind of video that's hard for people to follow and hard to engage with. Keep it very simple, and we're going to show you this example in a second of just like the simplicity of one tiny moment. And then also remember to keep those videos short. You don't have to do anything that requires editing in most cases. You don't have to do anything. We don't want you to bust out your software and have to provide an epic tale. For most of the social media platforms that we're using, shorter videos are going to get more views. So something that is under 30 seconds typically is going to be very valuable for the organization to use to promote that animal. And finally, just don't forget to share key info, especially if you're going to post this video on your own social media platform. You're going to post it on your Facebook page or your Instagram or Twitter, and share with your circle of friends. You want to make sure that it's very clear where this animal is available for adoption, what they need to do if they're interested, what the next step would be, and just make it very easy so that if the best case scenario happens and that video gets shared far and wide, that people know exactly where to find that animal and how to take action. So, do you want to talk about acapella, Tori?
Nice. Everyone's dog's going crazy at home. Acapella is a dog that is currently looking for a home at our organization, and the foster just captured this adorable video, and so we shared it just of him just singing along, and it's just a super simple little moment. And we hope that those little videos just show, it just shows a tiny bit of their personality whenever we share things like that.
Especially when your name is acapella and you're singing your song. So we're going to transition really quickly to talking about bios. And when we kind of talk about bios internally in animal shelters and rescues, we're talking about little write-ups that we're typically using as captions for social media or on adoption websites like Pet Finder or Adopt a Pet to help share a little bit of background information about this pet. And hopefully if videos and photos are kind of opening the door to a connection, these bios are giving a little bit more information and really helping people take the next step or decide that they want to learn a little bit more. And this example comes from Animal Care Centers of New York City. And there's a lot of things to love about this, and we'll let you guys read this a little bit on your own. But I think what is really important about this caption that was shared by a foster is that they're giving a really beautiful picture of what life is like with Socks, who is this adorable dog. They're talking about what their experience has been with Socks in their home. And what I really love about this is they give you a visual of what that life is like. So they say he politely nudges you to let you know that he has to go outside. He's never had an accident. And they go on to say he enjoys long walks. He'll even jog with you, and lots of snuggles. And it's really easy for us as readers of that bio to immediately kind of form a connection with Socks and understand what it might look like to bring him into our own home. And I think the icing on the cake of this bio is that they say, I can say with all sincerity that adopting Socks will not just improve his life, but will improve yours as well. And I think that's just such a testimonial of clearly how emotionally connected this foster is to that pet, but how much they also want to see him go on to another home. And that idea that really home is the goal. And I think as fosters, we so often get questions about like, well, why don't you keep them? Aren't you keeping them? You love them so much. And this really is an answer to that of yes, I love this animal so much that I would like to see them go on to that next home so that I can then help another animal. Mm-hmm. And we have a couple of tips and strategies here. So I think there are a lot of resources out there on how you can use different templates and different kinds of ways of using bio writing to connect. But if we're going to distill those down into the simplest forms, I think one thing to notice is just, again, that simplicity and heartfelt writing from the heart about how you feel about that pet is one important strategy. Again, that glimpse into a day in the life kind of style of what it is that you are doing on a daily basis with this pet. What does your life look like with that pet, so that other people can kind of go on that same journey. It's really important to realize that you don't have to put every single thought that you have into a bio, that adoption counseling is still going to happen in one form or another, even as we have kind of transitioned to a different way of operating as shelters and rescues. But that we don't want those bios to necessarily be super duper long or have so much detail that it then encourages people not to connect and ask questions. And sometimes we have a habit of overloading people with information in some of these bios to the point where they're not sure, they're kind of paralyzed to take action because they're not sure any longer what that life would look like with that pet. And in terms of a couple of strategies, this is an example in this case of Ozzy and a magazine style interview. So this idea of asking that pet a question, answering it, and just having a little bit of fun. This is especially a fun activity with the kids right now, now that we're all home and kind of together. And then if we go to the next slide, we have some options for fill in the blanks. So whenever you get stuck, if you have writer's block or you're not sure how to deliver a certain kind of information, because sometimes we have to share, you know, some information about kids or pets or cats or dogs. These are good options for kind of delivering that specific message, especially if you feel a little bit tongue-tied and not sure how to talk about some of those issues. But that's also a place where I would encourage you to reach out to the adoption agency and kind of get their take on how they normally handle some of that stuff as well. Did I miss anything?
And I think here you can use these resources as prompts for potentially behavioral quirks for your dogs as well. What's really important with bio writing, as a foster, you know the pet the best, and you know what their little quirks are like, what they enjoy the most, what might make them nervous. And it's okay that your foster is not perfect, because nobody is. And it's so important that we're setting the expectations for people reading about the dog, for people who want to adopt. So for example, if you have a really active dog who likely won't sit still, the second example is a really great way of sort of describing that. Do you need a workout buddy? Just describing that the dog is really active and preparing the person who may be interested about this dog to learn more about what the dog is like. So definitely think of ways of positively portraying the different quirks of the dogs. And then just to touch on the previous slide where, the bio is not adoption counseling, each organization has a great team of people who will speak to the adopter and sort of help to talk through each of the behavioral quirks if you have a dog that's harder to place. So it's very important to touch on, positives and leave to the adoption counseling to the team.
Well said.
So very quickly, we're gonna go through some just social media ideas. So getting the pet adopted is, the ultimate goal here, and there's a lot of different tips and tricks you can use on posting on social media and other platforms to help your pet find a forever home. So, and you can kind of think outside the box too, as right now, everybody's on social media at home. And so, it's great to post on Instagram, of course, Instagram stories, Facebook, everything. But then, think about your own network of coworkers. Does your company have an intranet site or next door neighborhood groups, swap and shop pages? The possibilities are endless to be able to post your pet that's looking for a home. So try to think outside the box and outside of your network in other ways that you can promote your pet looking for a home. Anna, do you want to talk about your foster takeover stories?
Yeah, so what we've been doing at Muddy Paws Rescue is reaching out to fosters to see if they want to create a little series for Instagram. So it could be just a series of 10 short videos where it showcases the dog in their daily life, or if you're feeling a little bit more creative, using a theme. So the first example on the left is of Gabby, who was an older lady. She was blind, mostly deaf. You know, the foster couldn't really take a lot of videos or photos that showcased her true lovable nature. So we used the theme to creatively show that. This was all the foster's idea. She realized it was Adopt a Senior Pet Month, so she used that to her advantage. She knew that Gabby loved to be carried around the city, so she sort of felt like she was royalty. So she sort of took that theme and ran with it. And it's a really great example of, you know, a dog that could be harder to place because they're older, they have a lot of medical issues. But right after this takeover, Gabby was adopted. So it's really important to just think of maybe like the little things that make you love your foster and sort of run with it, go wild, because there will be another person who realized that little thing is also super lovable. And then on the right, we have a more, you know, tamed story with Spud, who's actually available for adoption at Muddy Paws Rescue, who's been with us for 6 months. He's a dog that is very on the larger side for, you know, New York standards. He's about 90 pounds, and he can't be placed with other animals in a home either. So we really took his goofy, lovable sort of personality and did a day in the life of Spud from his perspective. So, you know, it says, "Hi, I'm Spud. I enjoy homes with laps to sit in," and just really, you know, take those little moments of love and connection with the foster and sort of showcase that on your stories. And at the moment, with the takeover was posted probably last week, we've had a lot of interest with Spud. So it, you know, at least very least creates noise and helps Spud get out there. And also the cute videos people are more inclined to share as well. So if you're able to sort of get creative with the little clips that you have, I'm sure you guys have hundreds of photos and videos. It's a really good way to put them to use.
Awesome. And it's okay to be funny and simple with captions. These are a couple of examples that we've had recently. And both of these photos, you know, we talked a lot about having the pet, like, you know, they're facing and everything, but I feel like both of these photos just sort of just captures a little bit of what the dog would be doing at home, like laying on its back. But it says, you know, Corn Dog definitely has a case of the Mondays. And just that little post helped Corn Dog find a home over this past week. And Barbara Jean, you know, is finding time to enjoy the little things in life, like sunshine and spring flowers. So she's going out on walks the same way that we all are right now. Instagram is really great for short and to the point captions, because when you post them, you know, you can only see a line or two for captions. So, you know, it's harder to keep everybody's interest if you're posting a really, you know, long description on there. Facebook does allow for a little bit of longer posts, so you can do things like writing the bios and everything in there. That is a little bit more helpful on Facebook. But all of these little moments causes the adopter to think about what life would be like for that pet to be in their home. Show your foster dog doing activities with you. So simple things like, we're all watching more Netflix these days, laying on the couch, playing games, going on walks, chilling in the backyard, or quarantine activities, you know, playing card games. This is Minnie that's looking for a home right now. So think about the social media content that you like to see, and then post those little moments. If you like seeing dogs just, you know, hanging out on the couch and being lazy, or a funny moment with the dog, feel free to post those. Because again, that will cause the adopter to start thinking about, oh, I would like to play card games with this dog. And show your whole family fostering. This is a really big question that we get asked. Everybody always asks, does this pet get along well with other pets, and does it get along well with kids? In the shelter, we really have no idea if they get along with kids unless there is a history of them living with children, or we've had some sort of interaction with them. So this is another reason why fostering is so great, because it gives us more insight on truly what the animal is like in a home, and that helps us match them up with new families. And it also may inspire other families to want to foster as well. They see a whole bunch of kids hanging out with cute puppies, and they're like, I would like to do that with my children. I love Thor so much. This is Thor, the cat. And so this is just a great example. You can show their transformation from shelter to foster. So the left is a picture of Thor in the foster. obviously not a cat that if we posted on Instagram would have people running to the shelter to adopt him, unless, you know, they really love the angry looking cats, which some people do. And then the photo on the right was Thor in his foster home. So obviously a lot more relaxed, and he did a takeover, an Instagram takeover here at the shelter, and got adopted last week, and his foster had him for 126 days. So it took some time for him to transition in the home, but once he did, she just, you know, worked with him every day, and he just got so much more comfortable, and it just shows why fostering is so critically important to help these animals. You can create cute hashtags for social media accounts for your fosters. A lot of people ask if people should create, you know, full-on pages for every single foster. And unless they're planning on being with you for a long time, I always recommend that you could do little cute hashtags. So right now the photo on the left is my foster dog, and I've been calling him Broken Pom Pom because he has a broken leg that we're trying to get healed up. And then, you know, using hashtags also kind of inspires you to post more and use the hashtag over and over again, and, you know, share some relative local hashtags as well. You know, if you post hashtag adopt don't shop, that's going to get, you know, your photo may get lost in the feed because that's such a popular hashtag. So think about local ones that will maybe get some more attention. We have like Insta KC here in Kansas City. If you plan on fostering long term, you could create your own fostering social media account, like the one on the left, or on the one on the right is one of our fosters who fosters a crazy amount of animals every year for us. And so she has her own account that she shares all of her fosters and gets them all adopted very quickly. So either one of you, anything to add on that? All right. And then of course, feel free to ask for help. Again, back to the communication with your foster managers and coordinators. Know who to reach out to if you need some marketing help, or if you, you know, want to get your pet adopted and you're trying to think of other ideas. Feel free to reach out to the organization to get some insight. And also, you know, if I know that someone's really trying to get their pet adopted, I'm more inclined to promote that pet if they can, you know, get me some great content and things like that. So. And if there's another way that you can communicate with other fosters, ask for advice, you know, ask for everybody else's input. We have an internal foster group here, and so they're constantly talking to each other and asking for advice and things like that. And then on here, Caitlin, you want to talk about some of these resources really quick?
Sure. So because we could talk about this all day, but we don't have the time and we don't want to keep you guys too long. There are a lot of resources where you can do a deeper dive on some of these topics. I'm really happy to say that HeartSpeak has a couple of foster-specific marketing guides specifically on bio writing and also foster photography. And then there are some really amazing existing resources from Maddie's Fund. So the Maddie's Pet Assistant is an app where you can, you know, touch base with other fosters, ask questions, get some really good advice. Maddie's University, which is a part of the Maddie's Fund programming, has a current foster marketing course, so Foster Marketing 101, that goes into some of this, and we'll be releasing a Foster Marketing 102 course that's specifically about social media. So if you want to maybe learn a little bit more about hashtags or about how to use some of the platforms a little bit more in depth. Anna, do you want to talk about foster dogs? I feel like you know them so well.
Sure. Foster Dogs is a really great organization, all dedicated to promoting fostering, you know, foster for all pets. And they have really great sort of programming that they set up to help promote your foster pets as well. Right now, I know they're running Friday Night Foster Club, sort of like an Instagram live series with a host, and where you can sort of showcase your pet that you're currently fostering. And it's just a really, you know, a different audience. They're reaching out to different people, and it's just a great way to get more people to notice your pet as well. So definitely look into their page and their website, because they're always looking for people to join in so that you can show off your foster pets and help them find their homes.
Awesome. And then just really quickly, because we talked a little bit about you know, the methods of taking photos and things like that, but if you're interested in some editing options, Canva is a really amazing tool to create quick little, really nicely designed posts. HeartSpeak actually offers some templates so that you can open up that template, just drop your foster's photo in, and be able to immediately use it on social media and not have to do too much editing. And then Snapseed is an amazing app for your cell phone. It's available on every platform, but you can make some really quick edits like cropping, but you can also use the healing brush to maybe erase, like if there's something really distracting in the background, you can kind of get rid of it. And it's just a really easy to use tool if you're interested in any quick editing.
Okay. Well, we want to thank everybody for tuning in today for this, and a special thank you to the Petco Foundation for hosting this and for all of your support and making fostering such a huge highlight in the country and just pushing it all the time. We can't thank you enough for your support and for hosting this. And our organization websites are on there. I also encourage you to follow us on social media so you can get some, you know, inspiration for posts and things like that. Follow as many groups as you can, because honestly, you might just grab an idea. I know there's a bunch of different shelters on here right now. And so follow all of us and get lots of cool inspiration. So we hope that, you know, you learned something today and that you got some ideas, and we're happy to answer any questions.
Thank y'all so much. That was amazing. I learned so much. I was like jotting notes down the whole time and also just commenting in the chat because there were so many awesome points that I loved and had to celebrate. So I have to say we have Thor's Foster who tuned in for this too. So that was really fun. And we also in the chat box, a couple people are dropping their Instagram handles. So attendees, if y'all have some foster pages that you think people should follow, feel free to drop those in the chat. We have about 10 minutes-ish for Q&A, so we'll keep those going, and we'll try to do a roundup of as many of those as possible in the end. So our first question, Alyssa Maltaire, I believe that's how I'm saying it. We're going to come to you and try to pull you off mute to have you ask your question to the panelists. So heads up, Alyssa, we are coming your way. Let's see if we can make this work today. Hey, Alyssa, you should have the ability to chat with us. Can you try to say something?
Hey.
Hey, it worked. We saw your question in the Q&A. We thought it was great. Can you go ahead and ask that to our attendees, or I'm sorry, to our panelists?
Yeah, I was just wondering if it's important to mention stuff like age, size, and breed on social media posts.
Thanks for that question, Alyssa. All right, panelists, what do y'all think? Who wants to take that one?
I will.
Yeah, no, I think I think that it's important that you can mention it, you know, periodically, but oftentimes, sometimes like people will see that information and they kind of just glance at it. It's amazing how many times we'll share like, this is, you know, Finn, he is a 2-year-old Pomeranian who loves other dogs and would love to meet you today. And then people will be like, well, how old is he? It's just like, well, we mentioned it, you know, so, but you can absolutely mention it from time to time, but oftentimes those like shorter, cute captions just to like grab a hold of somebody's attention is better than writing the full-on description. But of course you can mention it from time to time and post their listing from the website so that they can get some more information.
Yeah, I would say when you have a photo, sometimes you don't need to talk about breed and the way that the pet looks, just because that's already, you know, something that people can grab onto and not have to lose any of your character limit or the text that you're writing with stuff that may already be visible to the people.
That's a great point, Caitlin. Thank you so much for that, both of y'all. Okay, we have another question from Beverly Wilson. Beverly, we are coming to you next. See if this works twice in a row. All right, Beverly, I think you have the opportunity to say something. We saw your question. Can you ask it to our panelists?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
All right. When you work with abused animals, I mean, you have to communicate sort of what happened, but how can you put a more positive, you know, slant to it?
That's an amazing question. Thank you so much, Beverly. I saw this one come through in the chat or the Q&A box. I thought it was really important. Is there anything that y'all can touch on for that?
Yeah, so I can start with this one. So, I mean, we work with so many animals that come through the shelter who haven't had the best background. I think it's really important to emphasize the settling period of a pup. You know, sometimes it can take weeks, it can take months. I think it's important to focus on progress, sort of what's being you know, done to train with the dog to help them settle a little bit more, maybe little victories, sharing those are really important. It's all about the journey. And I think those little, you know, bits of information can really help. We've had a lot of dogs at Muddy Paws who have been with us for, you know, 6 months. They're either, you know, challenged by separation anxiety because of their past or whatever else. And it's just really important to showcase the little victories and how they're making progress, and also be upfront, like I said in the presentation, always be truthful, no one's perfect, and make sure that you're setting the right expectations. And it's totally okay that they had, you know, unfortunately they had a terrible past, but it's now focusing on the future. You know, it's hopeful that they'll have another chance. So I think really just thinking of that perspective is really important.
I love that. That was a great answer. Thank you so much. Is there anything that you want to add to that, Tori, or you want to take the next question?
I was just going to say, everybody loves a pet with a story. So, you know, talking about their struggles, like Anna said, is important to their story, and highlighting what you're doing to help them and the work or the progress that they're making in your home is a really important thing. And with the bio writing and everything, it's okay to not share. You know, a lot of people may say, well, is this dog great with other dogs? And you don't know. It's okay to share that you don't know those things. You know, never ever say, oh yeah, no, he seems like he'd be great. You know, it's one of those things that we're always be very truthful in all of your bio writing and everything that you're talking about. The animal transparency is always the best way to go.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, I agree. It sounds like just like adopting pets and fostering pets, one size does not fit all. And if we're honest about the expectations, I think that's when we see the best results. So that was a great point there at the end. Thanks, Tori. All right, we had a question come in from Jen Acosta. So Jen, we're gonna pull you off mute. I think you're a call-in listener. Let's see if this works.
Cool. Unmute myself.
Hey, Jen.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. We saw your question come through in the chat box. Can you ask it to our panelists?
Okay, so my question is, do you recommend sending in photos, both horizontal and vertical, or to tell people to shoot in square so that they're ready for Instagram or Pet Finder? Because I know the shelter that I shoot for, we have, for our website, there's just specific size that they need. So if you're fostering, should you be sending certain size pictures in?
That's a great question. Thank you so much, Jen.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I know this is going to be one of those, like, everyone's different everywhere, but like general rule of thumb, and I know you work a ton with like marketing, and Tori, you too. What's y'all's recommendation there?
I always tell the fosters to send everything and anything. More, you know, the more the merrier. And, you know, if you're working with an organization that has a team, they perhaps can help crop the photos. If you're not, sending as much, you know, assets, as many images and videos as possible, just so they have the options of using them. Maybe they can sort of use one video at a time. Really anything is helpful. I even find, you know, videos that already have text on them is totally okay as well, because you can always post on Instagram and slap on another, you know, little image on it or a caption on it. It's totally okay. Nothing is perfect. As long it's so important just to keep sending in updates of how the dog is progressing if they've been with you for a while, but send in everything, and don't worry too much about like specific crops or anything like that, because the platforms are pretty forgiving. You know, you're able to crop directly on the platform as well, and you make little edits there. So it's really just take all the photos and send them all in.
Agreed.
That's awesome. We have a couple of questions. Tori, I think you might be able to talk to this one. So I'm gonna, just for time's sake, kind of consolidate a few, but we're getting questions about positive spins and ways to talk about like medical conditions. I know that you have hashtag broken pom pom, either medical conditions, skin conditions, allergies, sick, a little bit older. What's your advice for how to talk about those pets?
Yeah, I think showing the transition of those pets in foster is such a wonderful way to talk about the concerns that they're having, that they've had in the shelter and then in your home, and how they're healing from that. So, you know, even we get a lot, you know, ringworm cats and everything like that, and we're so appreciative of all of our medical fosters, but showing that journey that they have in your home, and showing that before and after, or even just the transition, like Rebecca was talking about with Thor, just every day, just talking about how he was doing in the home over time, was such a wonderful way to be able to highlight him and his progress. And that is what ultimately helps them get adopted, is that journey that they've taken in your home. And feel free, because I know a lot of medical pets, they may not be listed on the website as they're in your home. You know, if you're able to, just go ahead and post those pets that, you know, someday they will be available, just to start getting interest on those animals.
Awesome. And then I think the final question, I'm just looking at time and I think we're so close to done, but final question, do you suggest highlighting from the pet's perspective, human's perspective, or both? Is there like a best practice on that? And this question came in from Kelsey.
I can answer that. So there's been no kind of data implications for which kind of bio works best. I think it's really just a matter of taste. And so if whatever is easier for you to write about, like if you find it just easier to write from the pet's perspective and that, you know, feels more comfortable for you, I think that that's totally fine. And I think if the opposite is true, you find it easier to just write about that pet and your experience with them as a foster, that's totally fine too. I think different things will connect with different people.
Awesome. I love that. Great advice and an awesome way to end on. Again, I think different things will resonate with different people, right? There's a home for all of these pets, and as fosters, we just get to be a part of the journey and finding it. So I think that's a great note to end on. So for everybody who was able to call in, to dial in, to Zoom in today, to be a part of this, for all of you who have stepped up to foster in your communities, thank you. To Caitlin, to Tori, to Anna, thank you ladies so much for taking time out of your busy day to help these incredible people who are saving lives in their communities. Your information was amazing. We cannot wait to share this out with everybody when it's done and finalizing to be recorded. Everybody keep an eye on petcofoundation.org/foster. We will post a recording there, but keep an eye on your inboxes as well, because we will be emailing a link out to today's recording. So without further, I guess that's the end. We'll let you guys go. We'll let you get back to your day. So thanks everybody for tuning in, and we'll talk to y'all soon. Bye everyone.
Thank you.